Alright guys, so we got the two sensors in from the Honda Beat and we've got it set up in the software, so you won't be able to see this, but right now I'm holding the sensor. I'm going to put a magnetic end on it and you see that it drops, right? So at rest it shows 4 volts. When I put something to ground it or to activate the magnet, you can see that it drops to 0.4 volts. Here's what's really interesting here. So I'm going to unplug the sensor really quick. Oop. Wow. And we're going to grab the other one. So here's the one that was on the car. And you see that it's still at 4 volts, right? I plug it in, and it's dropped down to 0.4 volts. Put the magnet on top of it, or the deal on top of it, and you can see that it changes. So it's like the exact opposite from one another. I don't know if that's going to cause any problems, but it's just really weird that one is inverted from the other. The problem is that it's such a bear to install this thing that I don't know which one's going to be the right one. So you see that's the other one plugged in, and then I put the magnetic piece on it, take it back off. So they're like really inverted from one another. I'm not sure if that's going to be a problem or not. I don't really think so. So we're going to test that really quick here and see if it does become a problem. Alright, so I have one sensor on, and then we're going to do the tap test to see. Okay, so that one's synced, no problem. So we're going to swap out to the other sensor, the one that reads inverted for whatever reason, and try it again. Okay, so they're both synced, so I guess that's not a problem. I guess it's just how the sensors is. It's really strange that they're both the exact same sensor in the exact same box, but they both react differently, but who cares, it works now. So I'm gonna try to attempt to install this sensor, which is a complete bear to do, and then hopefully we'll be able to get a trigger scope finally. So this is where we're at here. I've been dicking around with this for about an hour or so, trying a couple different triggers. First things first is we're going to pull up the scope, and here's the scope. So the E07Z, as most of you know, only has a cam trigger. It does not have a crank trigger whatsoever, so this has been kind of throwing us for a loop. And basically the way it works is that there's a grand total of 4 teeth, so it goes actually I have a picture of it from another forum here. So this is the E07Z. As you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 1 missing, 1, 2, 3, 4 is missing, 5 is there, 6 is missing. So it's kind of a really unique trigger pattern. And so I've been kind of messing with it. And if you look here, you can see that our scope is essentially the same. You see trigger, trigger, gap, trigger, trigger, gap. So if you look here, we don't have the cool squares, but it's essentially the same thing, right? See it? So there's that. So I was trying a couple different trigger settings, and this is where it's going to get kind of confusing, but generally speaking, on a motor, the cam rotates twice in the one rotation that the crank does. So if you get a full 360 on a crank, the cam's rotated twice in that. So that's why when people say, oh, you're 180 degrees off, that means that you have top dead center on the bottom, but the cam's in the wrong position. So that's what, when you hear people say it's 180 degrees out, that's what they mean. So I tried a couple different trigger settings, and I think I've got it kind of lined up here. So if you look at these little jumps down here, that's ignition timing. And the reason why it has ignition timing is if you look up here in red, it's got RPM. Obviously, the motor's not rotating 19 RPM, but it shows RPM, so it tries to fire the car. So if you look here, we've got another jump here, blah, blah, blah. But now, that's all fine and dandy, right? But if you look over here, you'll see where it says synchronized, and right below it says no error. You'll see that if I slowly roll over to it, we get an error out of it. Nope. Unexpected missing tooth, and then on the second one, same deal. There we go. See it, unexpected missing tooth. What that means is that there's a missing tooth that the software does not anticipate, obviously, so that's wrong. So we're gonna keep on going here, and keep in mind that in this I tried a ton of different trigger settings trying to get this right, and you can see down here we've got a couple different lumps here, and you can see that we get sometimes we get really good no error issues, but it doesn't sync here, so that doesn't mean squat to us. Alright, synchronize, no error. And so what happened with this one was I shut the car off and I went to go crank it again, and that's why you can see that there's like a little lapse here, and it did not pick up a trigger sync at all, so we know that that was wrong. And then after a second it came back around and it just synchronizing, meaning that it doesn't even get sync. And then these other two lumps here, same deal, a couple different changes, and we would get unexpected missing tooth. And so here's the fun one right here. This is the one that I really like here. I can't remember what trigger setting I made, but look at RPM here. Now, this is obviously not right. It's noise, or the trigger setting is incorrect, so, but it's just funny to look at. So on this one, it was the same deal. It would synchronize, and then it would drop out of sync, I think, is what would happen. Yeah, there we go. Tooth out of range. And that error basically means that obviously the missing tooth is in the wrong spot. Anyways, so while that's all fine and dandy, I think I've got it figured out here. This isn't 100%, but it's enough for us to keep moving forward here. So if you look here, we've got a couple lumps here, and most notably is the RPM is correct. You know, cranking under RPM, 200 RPM sounds about right, okay? And so down here, we actually were synchronized with no real errors here. Oops. Sorry. So down here, you can see at the very end, we were kind of synchronized with no errors. So that is good enough for me to keep going here. It may not be right, it may not even run, but it's enough for me to get started. So what's going to happen next is that we'll actually just wire up the coils and the injectors only, and then obviously the fuel pump as well. I may just temporarily hardwire the fuel pump. I've got to charge the battery because the battery Inker, if you're watching this, man, I hope you eat a dick, because I hate these batteries, man. Anyways, so beyond that, so we got to charge up this battery again, and then while it's charging, I'm going to go ahead and wire up the ignition coils and the injectors, and then hopefully we can actually get it to start. It may not run very well, but hopefully it'll actually just do something enough for it to start, and then we can move forward. Alright, so coil wiring here. Looking at the back side, this far right pin is power. Obviously all three of the coils are joined together, and then it meets to this connector here to this pin. So this is the power wire for the coils. Ground is the middle pin for the Honda coils, and it actually goes to this yellow wire here, which is also this brown yellow wire here, which leads up to all this. So it's all connected there. So this is definitely a power ground right here. Injector power wire here leads to this black yellow wire here. So now that we know that, it's time to start building our main relay wiring. Alright guys, I'm pretty tapped out here. I'm super tired. I don't physically feel well. Anyways, so this is I was going to repurpose the main relay, but there's just no way of doing that, not easily anyway. So I'm just going to run two separate relays for now, so the goal is just to get this thing to start. That's all I want to do. So basically we're going to have this relay here. This relay is activated by key on. It'll turn the ECU on, and I will probably have this also power the coils. Then on this side here, the ECU will control this, and then I will have this either fuel pump relay or injectors or something. So I haven't quite figured it out yet, but this is it tentatively. It's all just electric taped up just until I can confirm it, but this is kind of where we're at. Plus on Inker's car, the battery's dead again, so I'm gonna have to let it charge overnight anyways. But yeah, so a little bit of progress. So we've got the injectors and the coils mapped out. We've got to obviously supply power and ground to them. Once we get that going, then it should be all downhill. So if everything goes well and hopefully I feel better, then we can get this thing actually fired up tomorrow.